My Hero Academia Chapter 419 is finally out. And with it, holy schmoly, does Horikoshi cook! This one is very big, not only in Midoriya and Shigaraki's final fight terms, but in memories, confirming theories, the My Hero world as a whole, and in repercussions. Sweet Bakugo, do characters suffer in this chapter? It's glorious! And so, without further ado, let's jump right into My Hero Academia Chapter 419, titled Purpose. This chapter opens up exactly where the last chapter left off, with All For One manifesting as a giant monstrosity inside of Shigaraki's consciousness to confront both him and Midoriya. As All For One's manifestation rises from the ground, devouring Shigaraki and forcing the armless and child Midoriya to fall into the never-ending abyss, he calls out to the defenseless Midoriya with malice and hate, "You took One For All, and you stole Yoichi from me." But he then explains with a bit of a smirk, "By attacking Tomura psychologically, you allowed me to emerge on the surface." The story then cuts to inside of All For One's giant manifestation, where we see Shigaraki too is falling into an abyss. However, unlike Midoriya, his entire body has started to disintegrate as if he's being attacked by his own quirk. As Shigaraki begins to slowly fall apart piece by piece, he sees the face of All For One, who reiterates to the villain that he has never made a single choice of his own throughout his entire life. All For One simply made him believe he had his own decisions, but in reality, he was in control of Shiggy from the very start. All For One then goes on to explain that throughout his own life, he failed to steal One For All twice. The first time being against the hero Lariat, aka Daijiro Banjo, and the second time against his successor, Gaian, aka N. And it was from these encounters that All For One realized that while he had the strength, he didn't have the iron will needed to take the quirk. So, after he beat Nana Shimura, and while All Might was growing in power, he changed his focus from being stronger to searching for a mentally weak person. One he could control and mold into the perfect iron-willed vessel. And it's here where the story starts to flash through more memories, but this time they're All For Ones, where we see the villain actually befriending Shigaraki's father Kotaro, and over time even convincing him to have a second child. His reasoning for this is because initially he wanted to control Hana, but by the time he befriended Kotaro, she was already too big for All For One to guarantee his plan would work. And so, Tenko Shimura was born. That's right, All For One was technically responsible for Tenko's conception. This man took "I control your life" to a whole new level. And speaking of controlling his life, All For One made sure he was present and in control every single step of the way. As we see memories of him meeting with baby Tenko shortly after his birth, continuing to talk and befriend Kotaro, what looks to be convincing Tenko's friends to stay away from him, as well as walking him home one day in the skies, a moment which he used to steal Tenko's original quirk and replace it with the disintegration quirk. Yep, the theory is confirmed. All For One stole Tenko's quirk and gave him the disintegration quirk, the quirk that would ruin his entire life. And not only that, but it's also revealed that Shigaraki's disintegration is actually a copy and modified version of another person's quirk, removing the original quirk's ability to reconstruct anything it destroys. A quirk that can destroy and create? I wonder why that sounds so familiar. Oh my god, is it possible he has— holy shit! But anyways, as All For One reveals all of this to the disintegrating Shigaraki, he finally ends his little speech by saying, "There, I have annihilated your mind. I had planned to play this card after seizing One For All, but oh well." And as we watch Shigaraki with the sudden realization that he has been a puppet literally his entire life, he scratches his neck like he used to as a child before exploding into a pile of disintegrated nothingness, as the memories of everyone he has ever met flash in the background, leaving us with All For One now in full control, shouting one last thing to his disciple. Now, disappear. And with this, Izuku Midoriya gets projected out of the imaginary world and back into the real one, where he is catapulted out of Shigaraki's finger spear in an explosion before landing back on the ground, where in his defeated voice, he comments to himself, Yoichi is no longer here. From the smoke and debris of the explosion and with his feet firmly on the ground emerges the body, but not the mind or soul of Shigaraki, as All For One walks out looking like a strange and even eviler mixture of the two villains with full control over his successor's vessel. As All For One regains his bearings, he states, my midterm plan is no longer feasible, before morphing a hand around his mouth and in front of his face made by his skin, while interestingly commenting, there's still an echo left. Silence. He then begins to make his way over to the broken Midoriya as he reveals that due to all of the psychic damage received in the imaginary world, this body no longer contains any of the rage, hatred, or the disintegration quirk it once possessed, confirming to him that Tomura Shigaraki is finally dead. With this revelation, All For One declares that now, since both the vessel he has been crafting for years is ruined, and that his little brother is no longer a part of One For All, the only thing for him to do is to move on to his final goal, conquering the world. In hearing this, Izuku, with the little energy he has left, softly calls out All For One's name before telling him that he won't let him win. However, as Midoriya desperately tries to get up to his feet, he feels a sharp pain and falls short. Not because he is tired, not because he is unwilling to fight, and not because of any other external quirk, but because Izuku Midoriya has lost both of his arms. Sweet mother of crap! As it turns out, Nanashimura was entirely right in the previous chapter when she said both Midoriya and Shigaraki could affect each other physically in the imaginary world. And so, when child Midoriya lost both of his arms to Tenko in that realm, real-world Midoriya did too. So, Midoriya is next on the list of being overhauled. All For One, in seeing this, comments how, just like Shigi's body, Midoriya didn't come out of the imaginary realm unscathed either. But Midoriya, now realizing the true repercussions of his actions, still, despite everything, refuses to give up. With tears in his eyes and his bloody stumps desperately, but in futility, pushing against the ground. All For One, now fully confident Midoriya is no longer a threat, raises his hand and prepares to launch the finishing blow on Izuku, leaving him with the words, it's often said that people become stronger when they lose something, but you, from the start, had nothing. Look where you are now. And just as All For One unleashes his blast onto Midoriya, adhesive tape wraps around him as none other than Zero appears behind him with a surprise attack. All For One, actually caught off guard by this, notes that this surprise attack only worked because of how insignificant Zero's power is compared to that of Midoriya's. But Zero merely ignores this and shouts out to Midoriya not to worry, because they are here. As Ojiro and Sato show up out of the smoke too, also surprising All For One and both landing full power attacks on the villain. Which I don't know if it actually did anything, but hey, Team Ordinary is here. Midoriya, in seeing his classmates, happily notes you're all safe. And as he does so, another person appears behind him saying, sorry Izuku, we're a little late. As we see none other than Class 1A's homeroom teacher Shota Aizawa emerge from behind Midoriya on his one good leg through a warp gate portal. And that's it for chapter 419. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like. For more content like this, subscribe to the Lunchtime crew. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. It's lunchtime.